All right, we should be public.
Hello.
Ready to go. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello, hello.
Zach at your service.
And I am Steve, and this is With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends with very different opinions about world events get together and hang out and talk about those issues.
Yes, indeed. This week, censorship, cryptocurrency, and the occasions on which they do or do not intersect.
Yeah, and not necessarily not necessarily about their intersection specifically, but definitely I think two things that have been in the news recently, and also where we both have different expertise. Like I'm pretty much a novice. So I look forward to talking to you about it since I know you're passionate about it. And I remember, Jesus, this was a decade ago or so. You had banks of thumb drives mining Bitcoin before it was in the public imagination. So
I think it was 8 years
I'm saying
ago.
that you're a hedge fund type analyst talking about
I have no millions, no Bentleys, no nothing like
but you know a whole lot more than I do. So let's get into it.
True enough. So I think we were going to start off talk about censorship. Go ahead and give that a go. We got
Before you do that, let's just do a quick check-in.
Okay. With whom?
The audience. State of the world still fucked.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about censorship a little bit because obviously in the context of conflict in Eastern Europe, we've seen a process of the U.S. media and U.S. State Department and federal government, the Biden administration, using a lot of the tools they've developed through the Trump administration and through COVID, and really cashing in on this idea that only the government has the corporate media has the right narrative and everybody else is wrong, which is Orwellian to a T. And so the state of the world is still fucked, and we're going to talk about censorship in that context, crypto a little bit as antidotes to highly centralized systems and how we can actually meet our basic needs outside of the state system, since that's not serving the masses, right? Would you say?
Oh, I said for certain. Right now you have so many different countries, so many different currencies, and difficult exchange between all of them.
Yeah, and before we got online, we were talking about edibles. That's fun. I don't do them very often, but they're fun.
Yes. Unpredictable.
And, you had a date night, right, with your partner recently?
Yeah. We just went to Red Lobster.
Ooh, the high class. What'd you get?
Oh yeah.
Biscuit?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Of course, we even got a second helping. I had actually never been. I mean, it's possible I went when I was a little kid, maybe, but I do not remember ever having gone to that restaurant prior to this. I'm just
yeah. I'm a Long John Silver's popcorn shrimp kind of guy myself.
Sizzlers, all you can eat shrimp. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
That was my jam as a kid.
Sizzlers is one of those things that used to be popular, and now they're hard to find.
That's true. We have one that I can think of on Shaw here. So
I'm surprised those kind of buffet places survived COVID too, because
they had outdoor seating for a while. I don't know that it was 100% authorized, but they had it. And then since then they've started doing just inside as of the last few months, just like everybody else. They kind of retracted because you need more servants for the outside stuff.
Yeah,
more mouths to feed.
All right, man. Well, yeah, I think that we should normally get into a thing where we shoot the shit for 3 or 4 minutes, and then and then we'll get into our content for the week.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that now, unless you have something else to say.
No. I don't have anything to say for another 2 weeks, and then I have a lot to say.
Why 2 weeks? You want to give us a tease? That reminds me of something. Finish your thought, though.
You go ahead. I'm not going to forget.
No, I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, the fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer. And then, but that's not what you're talking about.
No, that is not what
And you're one of those people that
That's not what
hates
I'm
spoilers,
talking
so you haven't seen it, huh?
No, I haven't seen
Bro.
shit.
Bro.
I saw the Batman teasers online, and I was like, you know what? I do want to watch that movie, so I'm not going to watch the previews because, like, I get the occasional teaser from just like a title that I've already read and comprehended by the time I realize I shouldn't have read it. And I'm just like, oh, it sounds so fucking good. I hope it is.
I heard good things about Batman. I was never really into superhero movies, but
well, Batman's like 1989, fucking Michael Keaton.
Oh no, I liked the original Batman for sure.
I mean,
was
just
rad.
Ever since then, like that's what got me in. It was just like, oh shit, reel me in like a big old fish.
Yeah, and I really liked Joaquin Phoenix Joker. I liked the Joker.
Yes, movie. A lot of people
liked that a lot.
Yeah. I think that was a pretty good movie.
There was a lot of really apropos kind of subtext to it of the kind of madness in our society and well, I
was reminded of I think it's just called Network. It was the 70s movie that has led to the J.G. Wentworth commercial.
Yeah, and it's a pop cult, that whole clip where I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. It's a pop culture thing now.
It's so terrible just because it was originally like, I'm sick of how sick the world is and I'm not going to take it anymore, and now the people that are using it are part of the sickness. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, isn't that like just American? I don't know how else to describe it.
No, it's
how
it's
American
painful.
Is it to take this like subversive thing and then be like, buy our product?
How can I monetize that? No, it's pretty sickening.
Do you remember the Kylie Jenner Pepsi ad where she like makes peace between cops and Black Lives Matters by offering them
Pepsi? Yeah, I only saw that. I never actually saw it aired. I am thankfully spared from a lot of those things by not actually watching television. But like I heard like there was some sort of controversy, and so I was like, okay, what's up with this? And I was just like, oh, I see what's up with this. Yeah, people are going to cancel the shit out of you.
Of course, she's not canceled. She's probably, I think, I don't follow.
No, I don't
celebrities
think so.
Or whatever, but I'm sure has like 40 million Insta followers or whatever. Like, influence was not
hindered too much.
It was not affected by an ad and really bad taste. But hey, man, the elite are out of touch. And a quick aside that's not on our agenda today. Did you hear this week Congress voted to give itself a 20% raise?
No, of course that was hidden from me.
Yeah. How about that, dude?
I mean, it makes sense to me.
They even fucking delivered a goddamn thing and they're giving themselves a fucking raise. Like they deserve it. Well, they're like, oh, well, we Ukraine and it's about the American people need to sacrifice and we're just gonna have to put up with high gas prices and empty grocery store shelves. We're just gonna have to deal with that. We're gonna give ourselves a raise so that we're insulated from that. But the rest of you, it's your patriotic duty to
Yeah,
these are the preconditions for revolution, my friend. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's coursing my veins.
Somebody put it, really well about how like, $7.25 an hour, 8 hours, it's basically $60, I think. So $60 a day, gas prices, rent prices, blah, blah, blah prices. And they broke it down into like a per day cost. And it ended up being like of that $60 minimum wage for 8 hours, like 56 of it was spoken for already. And it's like, that didn't include any savings at all. So like, you just don't get to have any sort of fun.
Well, I mean, the math shows that Americans don't have savings to begin with.
Yeah.
And I saw saw something that was trying to debunk that statistic that, like, what is it, like 70% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency or whatever. And the way they debunked it is like, well, they say they can't afford it, but like they have access to credit. Like, so basically, like, if you have a credit card, then you can withstand a $400 emergency. It was the very out of touch kind of like, no, that's not the point. The point is, like, they have to take debt to deal with like minor emergencies.
Yeah, that's not savings. That's literally negative money.
Right. Exactly.
On a ledger, anybody who's ever kept a ledger, that's a debit.
People further into this position where, like you said, they'll every hour you work, you get to see $3 or $4, and then you're like, well, fuck it. Like, this doesn't get me anywhere. I might as well go buy like a latte or, whatever else.
Yeah. Might as well have a little bit of joy in my life because I'm never going to be able to retire.
Yeah. It's either, get my latte at Starbucks or, start using heroin or something. I don't know. Just something to numb the pain, right? Like,
then you got to find someone who's willing to sell it to you. I don't know where to find those people. I'm not sure I want to try.
If you look, you'll find them. I don't know, but I bet if I looked, I could. I'm just not into that stuff.
Oh no,
I like the legal mind bender shit.
Yes.
Speaking of mind bending, the pretzels that our media twists itself into. And the relationship between the corporation and the state, which, for those of you who don't know, is like a definition of fascism, is the marriage of corporate power and state power. So that's the subtext behind censorship.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started with our Hardlens Media.
Yeah, this is a clip from the folks over at Hardlens. They do a great job. They've been doing it for a while. Based out of Chicago.
So I'm going to start with what I believe was a good preamble they had early on in the episode.
Sounds good.
That was later on expanded upon.
There we go. And we also know that there's a lot of stuff that's breaking right now. Recently, what has caught my attention is, for a breaking story, is that, number one, the censorship is still happening with a lot of our colleagues, especially with the Convo Couch. Their Discord page was taken down yesterday, and I just want to remind everyone, it's not good. So we are in some very challenging and interesting times here, folks. So...
Oh my, I didn't even know this. I need to be caught up on all
Yes,
this. Okay.
Exactly it. So also a quick announcement too. We are not going to be doing a Patreon show because Kira, in the last half hour of the show, will be covering in detail all the ballot initiatives in the wonderful state of California. So to our California viewing audience, tune in, grab a snack, grab a drink, because we are in for a novel.
I know. I knew it was going to be really a huge pile of papers.
So
when I picked it up, I was like, oh, God. Oh.
And then later on, they continued.
Arduous march. We are from our 5 strikes. We're not at our full strength because, again, what YouTube does to independent content creators. Daniel.
And one other thing that we've sort of learned, this is one of those things that it's not written anywhere, like show banning, even though we know it exists. But there's something also behind the scenes that even if you get a strike removed, because all those 5 strikes we've gotten undone, there's still something behind the scenes. There's like a permanent record on YouTube where it's like, we don't care, still guilty. A big thing I think with this story specifically is this is the monster that old media created. I will very quickly recap the Cold War that YouTube went under with old media, establishment media, authoritative sources media, years ago. And it started around PewDiePie, and it had to do with them being old media being very upset that new media on YouTube was just destroying them in viewership, absolutely crushing them in viewership between all the shows that were out there. I mean, if you've been a fan of the show for over 2 years, you remember we used to get regularly 600 to 800 people on live stream, and it was growing. And that was just like every month, it was like 200 more. And that was basically until YouTube first shut us down. And that was that should have manifested a great sickness. And maybe I can talk about it now, but I don't want to take the risk right now. So we were doing really good. We actually had someone within the industry said we would likely have been at about 250,000 subscribers.
By a very reputable source, too.
Yeah, that we would have been at 250,000 subscribers rather than stuck for continuously at 40,000. We were taking off. If you go look at our social blade, you'll see that. And then it stopped. So anyway, the point is that the back and forth that happened between old media and YouTube is a lot of different channels.
So that, I think, is the point that I wanted to pull out of that clip, is that conversation about how ultimately, like, part of the censorship and this fake news stuff is about, like, legacy media institutions, like, being upset that their viewership is declining. Their viewership is declining largely, in my opinion, because they're fucking out of touch and they don't actually cover anything of substance, and they lie all of the time, and we know they lie. And there's just other places through the internet or wherever else to get information. Like, why would you subscribe to cable to watch a news program that's largely not providing you news? So I was curious what you think, like, why is legacy media declining in viewership? What does that say about society broadly, whether media consumption habits or just general, like, being fed up with establishment narratives? And where do you think legacy media's pushback against independent media fits into the broader scope of censorship and fake news?
I should start typing all that.
Are you taking?
I should have been
minutes or something. Like,
I should have been taking notes. That was like 5 questions all in one.
I'm sorry. I can ask them in sequence if I can remember them. I was just stream of conscious.
Yeah. Go ahead and start off with the first one. You can.
Yeah. So, like, what do you think has caused the decline in viewership in legacy media?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So for me, at least, it was the lack of focus. Like, I could pay, say, $80 for the channels that I wanted, and what I wanted to watch was on 10% of the time, just due to the fact that you had to schedule half an hour clips or whatever for different shows. It's not fun. I mean, I have great memories of sitting there watching the upcoming programming thing cycle through over and over again, but I don't miss it. Like, it was good for the time, but I'm glad that I could just watch whatever I want. And I got introduced to things and was able to become passionate about them on account of it was easy to access. Like, first through the internet, then through YouTube. And, YouTube really was what kind of, in my opinion, destroyed most modern news networks. Like, most modern media, not just news networks. It had so much more to offer. Like, I have 3 separate channels about computer and tech news that are delightful to watch. I don't feel like I'm reading a slog through a very like technical article looking for the good stuff. Like, I got 3 different people with 3 different opinions about what's good and upcoming in tech, and that's like, that beats the hell out of just hoping that you can get something on TV. And not only that, but like, TV has become so divided as they each try to get their own streaming service. They all want to get those dollars. It used to be you just sold your stuff to Netflix and that was it. Well, now everyone knows that they can make their own money. But as a consumer, I don't want to pay $5 here, $8 here, $15.50. Thanks, fucking Netflix here. Like, I want to go to one place and I want to get it all. And that was where places like YouTube have really beaten the hell out of everyone else.
Right. So in that clip, the guy Daniel in the black shirt on the side,
yes,
had mentioned how, like, YouTube viewership was just because, like, CNN and MSNBC are on YouTube. In fact, later in the show, there's a clip of what CNBC from YouTube that we're going to bring into the discussion on crypto. And so they're there, but they weren't getting viewership. So, like, is it the technology of consumption, or like is there something more to it in as far as like its delivery or its veracity, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying begging the question, but
yeah, I mean, no matter where you go, the comment sections are going to be bad. At worst, they don't answer any questions you had, or sorry, at best they don't answer any questions you had, and at worst, you come out radicalized one way or the other.
I actually heard some speculation that the dislike button on YouTube became private because mainstream media was upset with getting ratioed.
Yeah. That's a great. Yeah. The only other thing I'd heard is they were against the idea of brigading and raids. They didn't want people to just be like, oh, we disagree with this thing, let's go shut it down, with negatives. And so that got taken away. And it's like, I mean, I guess that could be abused, but like, I've heard a better point, and that was, well, I'm a tech tuber and I know that these are bad, like this is bad advice and you should not follow this advice. I want to, dislike this so that other people won't get stuck with this bad advice. And like, that's really clear cut when it comes to, tech. Is like, good advice, bad advice is pretty easy to sort. But like when you get into talking about censorship and, things in the government and so on and so forth, truth just becomes more muddled.
Yeah. Speaking of truth being muddled, that's my opinion, obviously, is that most people are just tired of like being lied to. Fox News is still pretty popular because Fox News viewers get validated by the content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think CNN and MSNBC and other kinds of boutique or bourgeois left media, even bourgeois independent media, just are not getting the eyeballs because most people don't want to be told that they're stupid for being outraged at the lack of action.
Right.
From people who sold themselves as bringing the ruckus or whatever, right? Like, and as at least I speak for myself, and I know a lot of people feel the same way based on the conversations I see online, is that like, we don't want to be told we're stupid, and we don't want to be told that, that we just need to shut up and color, right? Like, and so I think that like mainstream legacy media is like dying because like it's a dinosaur. It was designed for a different era and has failed to adapt to new technological like terrain.
Yeah.
But I also think it's that they've just eroded their credibility, whether, within a living memory, the Iraq war as an obvious example, repeating the State Department and the Pentagon and not pushing back against that and really helping manufacture consent for that conflict. They're doing it again in Ukraine, which is why I wanted to talk about censorship. An absolute just like presenting a single side to a very complex subject, and overall just generally like Russiagate, like all of this kind of sensationalism that like doesn't even exist within the realm of objectivity, if that makes sense. Like they don't try to be objective, they literally just try and sell themselves as like a particular point of view, and everybody else be damned, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, you lost me. Being the guy behind the camera, the guy in the van, while also partaking, is difficult.
It's difficult, yeah. Well, maybe at some point we'll get our own engineer.
There you go.
We'll get like a maybe like a little box with like a whole universe of people in it that do stuff for us, kind of like Rick's battery.
Oh yeah.
Spaceship battery.
Hey, I'm down with slavery as long as there's more steps.
As long as there's more steps.
and demonetized.
And demonetized. I mean, we were just talking about slavery, right? When you go to work and you're like, oh, for every hour I work, I actually, after taxes and everything else I have to pay for, I got 75 cents. Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
Like maybe I can buy myself a pair of new underwear. Yay. But not for 75 cents.
I'll go get some bubble
pack
gum.
of boxer briefs is like fucking $18 or something for 3-pack.
Man, where are you shopping?
I don't know. I don't actually shop.
Even I was gonna say even at
my partner does when she's like, dude, stop, you can't keep doing that, you can't keep wearing those. And then she fucking shops for me.
There are more holes than clothes now.
Yeah, usually it's the top threads. They don't wear holes, just the threads come apart at the seams.
Yeah, that will happen.
All right, you want to roll another clip instead of talking about
underwear?
Underwear?
Yeah, man. Let's see. What do I got up here?
Let's do the let's just jump to the brand clip.
Yeah.
I think he's just, I've been following for a long time, but he's like blown up recently. He's got like 2 million subs in like the last couple months.
Yeah.
But I've been following him for a while, and like he's just genuinely like, you know, he's kind of one of those Joe Rogan or Jimmy Dore-esque kind of like, I don't know what the truth is. I'm gonna kind of banter around it, but like I just like his approach a lot because you can tell he's an anarchist, like, and you can tell that from the way he talks, but he doesn't like shove it down your throat like a lot of you know, people in my political circles that like want to correct you when you know, mispronounce some obscure philosopher's fucking French name or whatever, like, you know, and he's just kind of like, I'm an anarchist and I believe in freedom and I believe in democracy and I believe in liberation and I believe in love. And you're like, okay, yeah, cool. Those are all things I agree with. So
I don't need to correct you about anything.
But he's got a good show. And he just kind of just reads news articles like a lot of people.
Yeah. I actually liked what he had to say in here.
And he's also very funny. I mean, he is a comedian, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I only knew him from like a movie that I still haven't seen.
You know where I know him from?
Where?
Wasn't he like dating Katy Perry for a while? Or some celebrity? I remember.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to celebrity gossip and news. And
not
stuff
even
like
the hot
that.
ones?
No.
Okay.
No. Maybe. Anyway, not usually. I don't know who who's being portmanteaued with Angelina Jolie right now, or the other people. Is it Brangelina?
Is it really important? We're on the brink of nuclear war. You're like,
nah.
Who's she on the rebound with?
Do I have a chance? I don't know.
Do I have a chance? No, probably not.
Here we go.
Would you want one? Like she yeah. We don't need to talk about Angelina Jolie. She was fucking Laura Croft.
Ever since decentralized cryptocurrencies started emerging as less of a passing novelty and more of a serious alternative to paper money, thus threatening to trigger a domino effect that might one day put the current world order relying on paper money in serious jeopardy, governments have been fidgeting, trying to come up with some type of regulation that would give them control over the developments. In February, the head of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission called on lawmakers to grant his agency authority to regulate cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, saying the speculative fervor around such assets has left investors in need of protection. The government, they're always there to protect us, protecting us from speculating, protecting us from getting unwell, protecting us from leaving the house, protecting us from freedom. When they start to say they require regulatory power in order to sort of damp down speculatory fervor, don't you just hear this cryptocurrency thing is actually...
So that actually shifts gears to crypto, but it also ties back into the censorship thing.
Yeah.
So before you explain crypto, or rather, like, I'll ask you some questions on things I don't understand.
Yeah, thank you. Nobody needs that.
Yeah, nobody. People that are into crypto fucking understand it. I am not into it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And clearly Warren Buffett isn't either.
No,
no, this idea. So in the media, right? Like I heard from I have a old friend. He's going to be 75 this summer. He's a retired State Department diplomat. And I just visited him last night. We went out for Thai food and it was lovely. And I mostly wanted to touch base with him on like the conflict in Eastern Europe because he was a former diplomat. And I was really surprised at some of the things he said because as he gets older, I think he's buying more and more and more into kind of establishment narratives. But one thing he said was like, oh, in Russia, like Putin like doesn't allow free speech and he shuts down media he doesn't like and this, that, and the other thing. And he didn't really give me a substantive like answer when I said, what is the difference between a government shutting down speech, right? And a corporation, because what we've seen, and I think we might have missed the clip, like just this last week or so, last 10 days, like RT America straight up does not exist anymore. Like it just ceased to exist.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and dude, like I like Lee Camp enough. I kind of am not his like biggest fan because he does not understand agricultural issues and just gets on like the vegan soapbox and like preaches to people about how like if you eat animal products then you're like basically like the reason for climate change, which is utter horseshit and no numbers fucking support that.
Right.
That's what we should call our show. With
no numbers support that.
We hate vegans. No, I'm just kidding. We love vegans. Your body, your choice. Put in your body what you want. I like cheap bourbon. Anyway, but Lee Camp lost his show, and he was like one of the more reliable anti-war voices. Chris Hedges, who's like we were talking about last week, is just being like a fucking prophet, and he lost one of his platforms. Right, he's a writer, but he lost his show, his interview show he had, and then a whole bunch of other people, and that was just because the cable companies, as I understand it, like two major cable. There's only like what. Because of consolidation, there's only like 2 or 3 cable companies like nationwide.
Yeah, like Comcast and Spectrum, I think it's called on the East Coast.
Yeah, Spectrum, I think. Yeah.
Is there like a different one in the Midwest that I don't know about?
There might be. I'm not really.
There used to be Roadrunner. I don't know if that got bought up by somebody.
I'm sure it did. Really, because of corporate consolidation, there's only like 2 or 3, maybe a minor company somewhere. Like Alaska might have its own like service provider or whatever, but like, or there might be one that has like part of Minnesota and then is primarily in Canada. I don't know.
Well, and there's like dozens of smaller ones, but
but there's just the big 3 or 4 or whatever, and they're just able to be like, no, we're not gonna. You cannot use us. So, but that's like a corporation, and they're doing it on behalf of the state. Or when like Facebook went and handed over information to the government, like, or anybody else, right? Like all these tech companies and media companies are just like preemptively doing what the government wants them to do in exchange for the tax breaks, and the approval of mergers and acquisitions, etc. And so this is really weird thing where you can't say, so it's like, oh, we have a free press in this country because our government doesn't shut it down. Right. But if the government says we really want it shut down, and then the corporation shuts it down, like, is that really fundamentally different than the government doing it itself? What do you think?
No, that's again just extra steps.
It's just extra steps.
It's just extra steps. I mean, really, isn't that what every regulation ends up being about? It's just a few more extra steps before you're breaking the law.
Yeah, I think the role of government is like a conversation for another day, because that's that's complicated, and there's a lot of parts of that discussion, like what are alternatives to like centralized bureaucratic control.
Blockchain, obviously.
Yeah, which we hope to see, maybe. But anyway, I wanted to tie those together because, like, this idea with the legacy media now, like, oh, we'll just talk to Google, and Google will take these people off of Facebook, or Discord will remove somebody. And the people they mentioned, the
entire channel.
In the Hard Lens Media clip, they mentioned the Convo Couch, which is like a YouTube show. I don't really like them at all. Like, I'm still a subscriber, but I like never watch their content. mostly because they do those like 4-hour live streams, and I just don't have. And they talk a lot without like saying anything that makes me go, "Huh? Oh, that's interesting. I want to hear more about that." So I just don't choose to give them my attention. Yeah, but I don't wish them to be removed from a platform. And like, it's one thing to get strikes from YouTube with this whole kind of infrastructure now of like fake news. You're like, oh, you said this thing that we find dubious or questionable, so we're going to remove you or remove that video or whatever, demonetize you, make it so you can't make a living doing this.
So you'll just go away.
What's that? Yeah, so you go away.
You just go away.
Exactly. But like, for them to be removed from Discord, is Discord owned by Google or another large tech company? I thought they were like an indie outfit.
They are. I believe they're. It doesn't mean they can't remove somebody if they don't want to. I believe that they are still independently owned. There was talks about like, oh, well, maybe they'll end up selling out to somebody, and they were just like, no, we never said any of that. We like our position as we are. We've got a great group of people using us, and they seem to like what we're doing.
Yeah, but that surprised me that they were removed, because I would not even think Discord, but like Chapo Trap House is this kind of like, what do they call themselves? A fucking shitbag or dirtbag left or whatever. They're just like kind of raunchy and crude, but they're like, talk about socialism and shit. There's like a whole subculture of dirtbag left. But anyway, like they got removed from Reddit. Is my understanding.
That's rough.
Yeah, and that's like, how do you get like removed from a massive platform? And like, what do you have to do? They're clearly not advocating for like genocide or anything. Go ahead.
Well, no, like they kept Reddit in specific kept around the Donald for a very long time before they shut it down. They had other unseemly subscriptions or channels that they kept around for a very long time. And each time they only got rid of it when there was a massive magnifying glass on them, and they were like, okay, fine, we got to get rid of it, I guess. But yeah.
And so what causes that pressure? Is it like the users are like, hey, we don't want this in our space? Are they like, is this being canceled? Or
no.
Preemptively, the corporation is like, go ahead.
Well, I think what happens is everyone wants to think like, oh, it's the fact that all the attention got brought to it. And then we were all outraged. And then this happened. And it's like, I mean, indirectly, more to the point that somebody in the back office did some math and figured out that you would lose more followers than you gained by allowing this. And so got to shut it down.
Yeah, but do you think that's the case with Chapo Trap House, who's like, is a popular podcast, but like otherwise, like, I don't know the story behind it, so maybe they said something controversial.
Was this on YouTube?
No, it was on. They got removed from Reddit.
Okay, right. Ooh, yeah, you got to do a lot. That's what I'm saying. Like, it takes quite a bit to get Reddit to take you down.
And I heard an interesting thing, and this is kind of an aside about cancel culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it was Lee Camp that said this. It was an interview with somebody. I think it was Lee Camp that said it. But he was basically talking about like, they talk about like cancel culture, but like Dave Chappelle like still has these like multi-million-dollar contracts, and like Joe Rogan is still on Spotify. And I 100% don't think Dave Chappelle, anything he has said is controversial. That might be a controversial statement in and of itself. I haven't really seen much controversy from Joe Rogan. Like he is who he is, and I don't agree with everything, but that's no reason to like get up in arms. I think that's all just a media distraction, distracting us from our biological weapons facilities in the Ukraine that now we're afraid are going to fall into Russian hands. Because why would we need biological weapons facilities in Ukraine? Who the hell knows? Not a fact, just speculation, I guess. At any rate, Lee Camp got removed from, I think I might have mentioned this last week, but Lee Camp got removed from Spotify at the same time he lost his RT show. Like his independent comedy podcast I've been listening to since fucking Occupy Wall Street. Moment of Clarity has been around for like a decade or more. Mm-hmm. And like Spotify's just like, nope, we're not going to carry it anymore. And so he was talking about cancel culture, and he's like, is is Joe Rogan canceled? Is Dave Chappelle canceled? Like, I got canceled. I got canceled for being anti-war and anti-fucking corporate power. And that's true, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, what do you think matters more to the people in charge? Your opinion on someone's sexuality or trying to cancel a very profitable war machine?
Yeah, absolutely, because he was more dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is none of these people that, not none, but most of the people that are canceled or whatever aren't real. Like, I can't think of a major business that's had a cancel thing against them that's actually gone. Like there were a whole bunch of cancels for Nike because they had Colin Kaepernick, but Nike's still around. Like,
yeah, and which is weird that they'd get canceled because of Colin Kaepernick and not get canceled for like sweatshops in Southeast Asia. You know what I mean?
One's much closer to home, and those people better kneel, is all I'm saying.
Yikes. So anyway, I do want to move back towards crypto and this idea of government regulation, because Russell Brand was just like, oh, we have crypto now, and it's kind of this thing that came up, and how do we regulate it? And I kind of made that connection between like, how do powerful people deal with media that's antagonistic to their objectives?
You get rid of it.
And the way they deal with that is by denying people a platform, or by removing their ability to make a living doing so, or whatever else. You saw this with Trudeau and the truckers, man, with just like pulling like GoFundMe's and shit. Like,
yeah, I saw a great thing that was kind of related to crypto. Basically, some companies that dealt with holding and moving crypto were told by the government how to hand over their records, and they basically said, fuck you, we don't have any records. All we have are the addresses, that they're coming from, and the addresses that they're going to, and that's not going to be enough for you to figure this out on your own. And also, we delete it all at the end of every day. So nope, don't have any of that. And it's like, and we're not required to keep any of that. And so
I use Signal for communications within a few organizations I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it as a text app too. Like I circumvent, because I have a friend in Canada that we just talk every once in a while, and my phone service, I can't text her in Canada, even though I receive her texts from Canada. But like, we can use Signal, and I was just like, just use Signal. It's like WhatsApp or whatever.
Right.
else.
There's so many other ones. I mean,
but Signal, my point was, is Signal is encrypted, and Signal regularly publishes, not regularly, but occasionally they'll send a letter to everybody that's a user that's like, oh, we got pressed by this government agency to give up information on people using our app for political organizing.
Yeah.
And here is our response to them. And that's basically their whole thing. It's like, the best way to not get subpoenaed by the government to turn over information that will create political prisoners, right? The best way to do that is to not fucking keep a record.
Yeah.
Or keep an anonymous record that can't be traced to any one person. And that'll tie us back into crypto and what Russell Brand's talking about. Go ahead.
The way that a particular thing from the government had worked is they definitely could have kept records and just encrypted them all under a series of easily memorized seed phrases, from their top executives. And so you might get one of them, but you can't get them all. And at that point, if it's in your brain, they can't legally force you, at least in most places I know of, to hand it over. You can be stripped of a piece of paper that has your password on it.
What if they have a Borgullet?
Well, then you're just straight screwed, man. They're going to get that out of your mind, and you're going to be left a husk of what you once were. But anyway, yeah.
So what is this? I think that's the whole clip we were going to play, right?
No.
First part?
No, that was just the first of 3 from what I saw from the notes. I have that he talked about.
So how do you feel about that, and what do you think the success is going to be? Like, do you think the regulators, like the SEC and stuff are going to be able to step in and actually regulate it?
It's going to be, they can regulate the exchanges, and that's where they get you, like, basically they say like, okay, these, in order to deal with cryptocurrencies in America, you have to be licensed, and you have to, use like a bank that's up to a certain standard or form your own. And that is where the government can control it, is when it comes from being a cryptocurrency back to being an actual,
Real
local
asset,
fiat currency.
cash.
Yeah. That's where they can block you. And so the only real way around that is going to be to just exchange goods and services directly for the cryptocurrency. But that didn't answer your question.
Which I heard a few people are. Like there was like insurance companies that will take crypto. I think they might be in another country, not the U.S. though.
I'm pretty sure even within the U.S. you can get most goods and services. I don't know, and that's the thing, is like the whole reason that you need the banking system and all that is for things like health insurance and non-actual physical goods that you purchase. Like most of the time, you can do that pretty well, without having a credit card, like cash will do. But like, when it comes to paying your insurance, they're going to want a direct from the bank or a check or something like that. Like, that's just one more area of control.
Yeah, go ahead. Play that clip, because I got some Mexican food coming.
Right on, man. Let's see.
Quiet Con, dude, is good.
What's that?
I just said Quiet Con, it's good.
As we've just seen, the law changes. The law is plastic. The law is the tool of the government. If there isn't a law to shut you down, they'll create one. But neither agency has won undisputed oversight over the two largest cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ether, which together represent about 60% of the entire market. Congress must work with regulators and the Biden administration to design a framework that protects consumers and our environment and keeps our markets fair, transparent, and competitive. That's what they always offer up, isn't it? We're coming to protect you. All right, we're here to protect you. Fucking just leave us alone, all right? We'll protect ourselves. No, you need a bit of protecting. Sit still, sit down. And what about this bit? Fair and transparent. Where's the fairness and transparency in Congress people like Pelosi and cross-party politicians using what appears to be insider trading knowledge to make money from stocks that they are supposed to regulate? We've done stories on this. If it's fairness and transparency, stop lobbying. Get the money out of Washington, stop people in Congress from financially benefiting from stocks that they are supposed to be regulating, most notably Pelosi and her husband and all of their big tech stock. These are measures you would make if that was true. What it seems like you're trying to do is prevent other people from profiting. Ordinary people potentially. Now, I'm sure cryptocurrencies, being a financial market, is already dominated by the kind of powerful forces that other financial interests are dominated by. But the fact that it's being regulated leads me to believe that it's a potential outlet for ordinary people, that it represents a degree of freedom precisely because of the regulation. That's where my own personal trust when it comes to government regulation sits. And I'll tell you why, because I've just seen what's happened in Canada. I've just seen a protest maligned as racist. I've just seen bank accounts frozen, emergency acts introduced in the name of what? Protection, fairness, transparency. So now when I hear those words, I recognize the dog whistle. I now know how to decode. They've taught me how to think. In February, CNBC reported that some lawmakers and their families...
Of course, there's lawmakers and their family are betting on crypto. Just like he mentioned, Pelosi and the insider trading, and I think we might have talked about last week or the week before about the Twitter account, Pelosi Trade or whatever.
Yeah, they got shut down.
Nancy Pelosi's trade. So like people can also make money on the insider information.
No, not allowed.
Can't do that. Again, censorship, right?
Yeah.
Like you're allowed to have a voice there, but no, not if you're gonna if what you're doing is going to draw attention to corruption, right? And so there's two pieces that he said in that last clip. One was about that the idea of like, oh, transparency, like we're just trying to make it better so people don't get defrauded. My first question to you is
Right.
like, how, and I read a little bit, it doesn't seem super common. Do you know like how common is it for people to defraud using crypto?
As often as it is for them to defraud.
Like
Well,
for
less
old
less
ladies
often.
to get called up or whatever?
Yeah, well, the thing is, a lot less often, but still often enough to be notable and funny, as long as it doesn't happen to me.
So it is a thing.
Oh yeah, like all the normal scams apply in crypto, and then you actually have even easier ransom scams, or full-on ransoms. It all depends. Just due to the fact that
because
they can get access to your computer and lock up all your files and everything, and then demand money. Best case, you get it back. Worst case, you're gone, all your money, and you had to learn how to use Bitcoin.
Okay, so there is like an actual need, but as far as like that idea he brought up, because that's my opinion without knowing a lot about Bitcoin, is it like, and it ties into the media thing too. Regulating it is about like exercising control and ensuring that the powerful are the ones who benefit from it primarily. And if some of that trickles down to you peasants, then that's it. Right. So where are you on that? Do you kind of feel that way about regulating crypto? Do you think it's just a way for like the billionaires to make more billions while the peasants are more or less locked out?
I think not only it's that, but I think that you'll also find that not a lot of people who invested in this early that were wealthy and were just like, you know what, I got a few $1 million to throw at this trend. Let me throw it at it. I think you won't find them trying to get it all banned and regulated and everything, because they'd much prefer to just be able to spend their money when they outsmarted all the other people.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that all this is just rich people trying to get richer. Crab baskets. Nope, lost it.
No, you're good, man. So like I kind of like tie this back to that first statement from the Hard Lens clip about about the way the corporate media didn't like this. So with the shadow banning and big corporation here gets together with big corporation, ultimately like the shareholder, there's only like most like 70% of stocks are owned by the top 1%. So it's the same fucking people that own the companies. If you say the company is owned by shareholders, right?
Right.
Like it's all the same fucking people. So they're like, oh, well, our business is hurting over here. So can you help us out over here? So then Google's like, okay, cool. Oh, that's fake news. But like mainstream legacy media is not fake news by definition. That it being legacy media means it's not fake news. And therefore it gets priority in the algorithm.
Right.
And everybody that says anything that we don't like is suppressed. Go ahead.
Oh, I believe that was actually in a clip that we didn't get a chance to get to, where they basically spoke on, it's okay for the larger media groups to talk about, COVID or any, crypto or any other things, but then your voice is just completely drowned out. And not just shadow banned, like there were channels completely unrelated to politics, completely unrelated to medicine or anything, that early on in the pandemic just said the word and were immediately banned. And that was just because they were trying to control information at that point. It wasn't even a matter of like anyone's money was going to be affected. It was just, this might cause panic, lock it down.
Yeah. And that's just like, it's an amount of control that it's like, I mean, they're the same people, right? Like the people that control the companies are the people that control the politicians. So it's the ruling class is the ruling class, right? Like there's not a lot of daylight between them. And we might talk about them as individual institutions,
Right.
But ultimately, like they're the same fucking people. They're the yacht parties and Martha's Vineyard people, right? Like, yeah, so I just like thinking about that statement that Russell Brand made about and you regulate it in that way, you ensure that it remains within the control of the ruling class, was something that I was like, that's the same fucking thing that's happening with censorship and the way that tech is just controlling what gets seen and heard. And when you think about legal, right? The Constitution as it's written now only applies to limits on government. Like, I would love to have a convention and rewrite the Constitution to explicitly lay out privacy protections and lay out what freedom of information means, right?
Well, I have to wonder, the Dutch East Indies and everything, or a Dutch East India Company and all that stuff, those that existed long before our country was ever even formed. So I think that they knew the power of business and corporations, that outlast their original creators. So I have a feeling this might have been programmed into our system of government.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Baked into the bread.
And that's an argument that goes beyond the scope of what we can talk about today. But we should have that conversation at some point, because I firmly believe that the creation of the nation state as we understand it was one of the many steps that it took to create a capitalist system as we know it. And that the state and capital have always been, two peas in a pod since the very beginning.
Right.
So 100% agree with what you're saying about the corporation and the state. Let's see what else. We're going to move on to Mr. Buffett, right?
We certainly can.
And so, there has to be a preface or a caveat statement that says, of course, he's part of the billionaire class and fuck Warren Buffett and fuck the billionaire class. However, he says something in there that really gets me thinking as a materialist, right? I believe in a tangible material world. And this is kind of the tension between me thinking crypto's a good idea or even worth considering and being pulled towards this reality that the world is material and crypto is ultimately it's a digital thing. It doesn't if computers didn't exist, if the internet didn't exist, nobody that's invested in crypto would have anything, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Unless they convert it while the system still exists. Go ahead.
As accurate as any business that loses all of its equipment and all of its employees is worth a damn.
That's true.
Yes, it's much more likely that, the internet as a whole, interconnected around the world, goes down, because it already is in a lot of countries. They're not connected to the outside internet. And even, even in your own country, you're not. Anyway, so damn it, lost it.
Let's watch some Buffett on CNBC.
I don't want to. It was good. I want to go back and listen to it. Let's see.
Oh, you want to go back to the Russell Brand?
No. Sorry. I was thinking of something else. Let's do this.
This is how we're fair and balanced.
What is it about Bitcoin that gets you guys so fired up?
Well, when you buy a farm, you look at the crop every year and what prices are, and you decide whether it was a satisfactory investment. You look to the asset itself and what it produces for you. When we buy a business, we look at what the business earns and decide how we feel about it in terms of what we paid. But we are buying something that at the end of the period, we not only have what we bought in the first place, but we have something that the asset produced. And when you buy non-productive assets, all you're counting on is whether the next person is going to pay you more because they're even more excited about another next person coming along. But the asset itself is creating nothing. One of the interesting things, for example, is gold. If you go back to the time of Christ and you look at how many hours of labor you had to give up in order to buy an ounce of gold, and you take it forward to now, you'll find the compound rate maybe 1/10 or 2/10 of 1%. And then you have to insure it during that time and make sure somebody doesn't steal it from you and everything. But it doesn't produce anything. And productive assets, you can pay too much for a productive asset. But I bought a farm in the 1980s, and every year look at how much it produced the way of soybeans and corn. And at the end of that period, I've still got the farm, and I've gotten some significant income off of it. Apartment house, operating business. But if you and I buy various cryptocurrencies, they're not going to multiply. They're not going to be a bunch of rabbits sitting there in front of us. They're just going to sit there. And I got to hope next time you get more excited after I bought it from you, and then maybe I'll get more excited and buy it from you. And actually, we could sit in the house by ourselves, and we could keep running up the price between the two of us. But at the end of the time, there's one Bitcoin sitting there, and now we got to find somebody else. And they come to an end. I mean, those.
That's a greater fool theory. That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's buying something because you expect the pool of people who want to buy it because they want to sell it to somebody else will grow, and it's wonderful because it does create a rising price. Does create more buyers, and people think I've got to get in on this, and it's better if they don't understand it. That's the other thing about if you don't understand it, you get much more excited than if you understand it. I mean, if you buy a bond that says it's going to pay you 4% a year, you're not going to get any pleasant surprises. She's going to pay you 4% a year. But if you can have anything you want to imagine, if you just look at something and say that's magic, you can do it with shark's teeth or seashells or anything. And they did it with tulips in the 17th century in Amsterdam, and they'll do it again. I mean,
you can pause it here.
People, they like to speculate. They like to gamble.
They like to gamble, is what he says at that last part. I wanted to cut it off with the tulip because everybody should be familiar with tulip mania. It's a classic example in economics for something that made no sense.
And wasn't quite as real as everyone says it was.
No, it's pretty real. I mean, it happened. It wasn't as widespread though. Like it was a very regional thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, him talking about gold was an interesting one because me as a collapsnik, like I'm always like, fuck man, I should have been buying silver for the last like decade and a half. And I don't mean like putting everything I have into it. I'm of the opinion that the best thing you could do is have a piece of ground that you can make productive and work on the skills that can't be taken from you. Right. You can be removed from the place you live by gunpoint, whether not paying the county your taxes and the sheriff comes to evict you, or by marauders or gangsters or how fascist militias or whatever future you envision, right? Private property only exists as
socialists coming to take your land.
What? Who's taking socialists?
Is it socialists coming to take your land?
No. Well, I mean, who the fuck knows? I'm just saying that it's like private property is a legal fiction that's like only exists because it's enforceable by violence. If that makes sense. And so I was always like, so the skills are more important to me, but like being able to like produce income from an asset, like Buffett was talking about, to me seems a better place to park, I guess, your liquid assets, right? Like if you have surplus money, if you're not one of those people that's making 75 cents an hour take home pay, realistically, right? If you're not one of those people, what would be a good thing to do? And I was just curious what you thought about his kind of approach. And of course he's old, right? Like, but he definitely sounded like he understood it well enough. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I would have to imagine that he knows a lot more than either you or I about money and how it works.
Right.
Because he'd be a billionaire and we'd be not. We'd be not. The issue that I have with the comparison of gold and Bitcoin is just like, yes, they both start off as one thing and then generally need to be exchanged to something else before you can actually get them. Not a lot of places are just accepting strips of gold or, grams of gold as payment. They want bills and coins and stuff. But that's not an apt comparison because you do have people that'll take Bitcoin. And so it's easier other than gold in that respect. And then when it comes to the actual value of it, people say like, oh, it's just, digital, it has no value. Well, most currencies don't either. So it's not really all that great of an argument.
I see. You're saying because currency is is literally like
because it's
an
a fiction
instrument of exchange.
Yeah, because it's a fiction, why can't it be a fiction on computers?
That's true, but what that means though is that like currency is not a fiction. It is backed by the productivity of the sovereign or whatever, right? Like, so because the sovereign can tax economic activity, the currency represents like the strength of that economic activity.
Yeah, but
and
like,
so if government sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, for the ruble, like they basically went after Russia, and now, like, yes, they can tax the Russian peoples, but then the money is worth less when it comes to international exchange. Did you disappear?
Yeah, no, and that's true too. That is true.
So I mean,
I'm
it's
not
only
an expert on currency. I just know that as sovereign government, like, that's the thing that my understanding comes from, like, the perspective of like the petrodollar and the U.S. as a global hegemon, and like people not understanding that like this inflation that we're feeling now is like nothing compared to the fact that when like OPEC decides like, nah, you're a loose cannon, America. Like, we're not going to trade in US dollars anymore. And then our currency doesn't have the value it did because it's not in demand. Right.
And so that so basically it's by popular agreement that currencies are worth a damn. It's not just inside the country anymore. Now it's outside the country. And so, like, even there, Bitcoin has the advantage because as long as it's adopted, it's popular and it's accepted.
I'm not saying that a digital currency can't be a real thing. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, most of our economic transactions don't fucking exist in paper and coin. Like,
I deal with it.
It's just fucking numbers anyway, right?
Yeah,
like,
we make them up.
It doesn't matter what unit it is. We can just call them flurbos or whatever. I don't fucking know. But like, that was a fucking Rick and Morty reference, bro. Flips and chips.
Sorry, I was just busy thinking about how people say, like, oh, well, banks can create money by charging fees, and it's like, shit, man, my landlord creates money by charging fees. Like, out of nowhere, right. If I pay my rent late, he says $50 just came into existence and you owe it to me right now.
Right. Well, not quite the same thing, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're right. Money is an instrument of debt. Like, money doesn't exist without debt. It's literally like a token that says you will give me something at some future date, right?
Right.
So where does so you're just like crypto, the whole idea is that like it's an exchange thing. Then why is fucking Mark Wahlberg doing like ads and shit? Why are people investing in crypto if it's just a medium of exchange? Because you don't see
it's
people.
It's not. It's
you
also
just see those weird
value.
people that do the late night show where they're like selling the only 500 of this like mint coin, like silver dollar or whatever, and you get these like weird old people that buy that shit. Other than that, people don't buy currency to fucking collect it, except for like a very niche market.
Yeah, well, it's also a store of value. It's not inflationary. Basically, there's a limited amount of it that'll ever be in circulation, and that's 21 million of them. They are infinitely dividable, so there is technically like the ability to just say like, okay, cool, well, there's only 21 million, but we're going to divide them up into ever smaller pieces, and you'll just have to pay fewer pieces for the things you used to get. So it's just a deflationary scheme, which runs very contrary to the inflationary scheme and encourages holding it as an asset rather than using it as a currency.
I understand. I mean, not really. As far as I'm concerned, like, the thing that matters is like I can protect myself from the elements and regulate my body temperature as required as an organism, feed myself so that I'm able to metabolize as an organism, protect my young, which is necessary for reproduction as an organism.
Right. But I mean, you're able to do all of these things with or without currency, though. I mean,
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
The only reason we need currency is because we live in a fucking system where someone wants to scrape some shit off the top.
Yeah. Well, no, I think currency in and of itself has never been a bad thing. It's just a means of assessing value across multiple products, so you don't have to spend a shit ton of time making trades. I mean, it works good for that. It works good for that and not much else.
For facilitating trade?
Yeah. That's it.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, what about the fucking Code of Hammurabi and shit? Like, what about when the scribe would just like take a clay tablet and be like, and scribble out like a picture of a cow, and it's like, you owe us a cow. Like, there's not actually anything being exchanged. It's literally just like
it's a
declaration of someone who has the capacity to murder you.
I was gonna say, I keep wishing I had this damn quote from a D&D podcast that I watch. Like twice now I've thought of it, where he just talks about how laws are nothing more than threats from the people that are in power.
The literal definition of a state is it's just an entity that has a monopoly on violence.
Yeah.
And when you talk about state failure, it's when the state no longer has a monopoly on violence. Like
More
when
violence.
Local warlords or gangsters or whatever are in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally the definition of like, what is a nation state? A nation state is like the entity that determines who gets punished violently and who doesn't.
Yeah. We keep like trying to strive towards the one where it's like, it's good for all people, or at least I would hope it would strive for it, where like, oh, we've created something that's just good for all people. And in which case, like, beating the downtrodden until they can't support themselves anymore would be a net negative, because then we'd have to support them, without them being able to do their own, worth in the world, whatever they determine that worth to be. Like,
well, man,
all people.
I just want to say that I don't think that this is a settled issue. I'm still sus as fuck on the crypto stuff. It's like, I understand it as an exchange. Like, if people want to play around with that, if they want to gamble, as Buffett was saying, like people like to gamble and speculate, to each their own. I am of the thinking that, like, if you got funny money, there's definitely better things to do, like building skills.
Well, yeah, but
tools.
This can be done passively. This is not something that you need to be dedicating a lot of your time to.
So if I'm a government and I tell my central bank to create money so that I can spend money, right? Like,
right.
That's like a promissory note on like
your ability to give it back.
Ecosystem, essentially, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, we're gonna borrow this, and then we're gonna pay you back
by creating and selling goods and services and stuff like that.
Right, which is ultimately like cutting a tree down, and then all the productive activities that take place until ultimately the tree is reaches its destination or whatever in the economy. So then, like, what is like crypto is just created by like virtue of people using their computing power to create better security for that digital asset. I don't quite understand like why.
So basically, this is what the computing power does, and it doesn't need to exist as it does right now, where it's an ever expanding arms race to get more and more computing power. But as it is right now, basically the idea is that I have this electricity and this computer. I will now go ahead and earn this cryptocurrency. And so what basically keeps it solid is the fact that you have that online ledger, and you're competing to put all of the transactions that you can into that ledger by solving random equations as quickly as you can. And so, like,
is there a purpose to the equations? Like, is there some kind of objective?
The security is the purpose. Basically, by having a bunch of different people or computers competing to put all the transactions into the ledger by solving these equations, you have competition that prevents one group of people from getting too much control of the ledger and writing their own entries as they want, and then putting it back out to everyone else's reality.
So the Bitcoin is the reward for you using your computing power to make
protect
the
ledger,
coin
basically.
Secure?
Yes, to protect the ledger, yeah. And so there are going to be 21 million total that are created only through this mining process. That's the only way to bring them into existence. It started at 0, it'll end at 21 million.
Who decided that?
The creator.
And then, but the creator's not in charge.
No, because he put it out as open source.
And so then who says it stops at 21 million?
The source code, it could be changed. That's the thing, is it could be changed. The number of decimals at the end could be changed. It would just require overwhelming consensus for a long period of time. Like other coins.
Consensus among who?
Among basically anyone who is designing these can put out their version of what they think it should be and broadcast, through the normal means, email, and so on, chats, like, hey, I have this new idea for where I want to take this coin. I'm going to put out this new software that'll attach to and overtake the old chain. So all the old data remains, but now it moves it in a new direction. It's called a fork. And so the idea is that anybody who wants to can democratically try to get their idea put in. So in order to get more than 21 million, you'd have to get over 50% of the people that are working on the network to hop over to your new software chain and keep doing it long enough, basically like going on strike, and you're like, no, we're over here, and we think that you'll fall up before we do. And it's never happened for Bitcoin, but it happens a lot for other coins. And so it's called, like I said, it's called a fork in the chain, and basically you adopt one policy or another totally democratically. I mean, of course.
But democratically how?
Just by the sheer number.
Who gets the vote?
Okay, so great question. I have wallets for cryptocurrency, and that acts as my voting mechanism when it comes to some cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. On Bitcoin, it literally is just, I see a chain, I attach my hardware to that chain, and now I'm on it. And so if you can get a bulk of people over to your chain for an extended period of time, that'll become the dominant chain. And now,
so when you say democratically, you mean just people will flock to the thing they want to do?
Yes, ideally that is how it will work. I mean, as with all things, of course, you have consolidation. There's already a consolidation in Bitcoin. There's I think it's something of at one point there were only 3 major pools. That's what groups of miners are called. Pools that were are getting most of the blocks, and one of them even approached 50% and voluntarily let loose some of its members in order to rebalance that and take it down. So basically, the reason why they don't want to get to that control is because that is a huge threat to the conception of Bitcoin. The whole idea of it being immutable on the ledger. Well, if you get to where it's no longer not centrally controlled, you defeated the entire purpose of it. Now it might as well be a ledger at a bank. And that bank gets to say what's what.
Yep, not going to even pretend I understood what the fuck you just said. And it doesn't matter, because guess what? Bitcoin did not buy my Mexican food.
No, that's true. Not yet. Not yet. I have bought shit with Bitcoin, though.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand, so you have to buy you pay real money that has an exchange value in the real world.
You can mine.
You pay that.
Yeah.
And then you get this thing that then numbers on a screen say it's worth something, but it's not until you're able to exchange it.
Yeah.
And if other people say, I don't want to take that. Because a sovereign, the thing is printed right on the fucking money on your dollar bill is this is legal tender, meaning if someone's right. I don't want your US dollars,
right?
In the United States, at least, you can internationally, they can be fuck you, we don't want your dollars, right?
Yeah.
But in the US, if you say you buy a candy bar and you hand them a dollar bill, the grocer can't be no, I want to be paid in Bitcoin, not US dollars. That's fucking illegal, and they lose their business, right? Because
that actually
the currency is backed by a sovereign. Go ahead.
That actually has come up where people wanted to open Bitcoin only shops, and once they became too big, people started to take notice. That got called against them.
You're legally required to use the currency, like in a business. I mean, you don't,
and
you can choose to do something else. You can be like, why don't you just sweep the store and I'll give you a candy bar? Like that's.
Well, I mean, as with all things, though, if I have Bitcoin on my phone and I go into a store and I'm like, hey, I'd like to pay for this with Bitcoin, and they say no, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess just walk a few more blocks. No, I guess I can walk a few more blocks to get to the next place. Like. You can vote with your Bitcoin. Refuse to do business with anyone that doesn't accept it as much as you can. It's not possible everywhere, but as much as you can. And that's what a lot of people have done. Is they're just like, I'm going to try to support this currency by making it a bigger part of my life. And the thing is, like, you question the value of it. Well, like, yes, there's no GDP to measure, but I mean, is GDP the greatest measure of value to begin with? And if it's accepted multinationally, literally anywhere that doesn't block it, that makes it the dominant currency, at least for accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see there being utility. I see Mark Wahlberg or whoever it was like doing ads and shit, and I see, like, oh, TD Ameritrade now offering like expert, brokers in Bitcoin, and I'm
Robinhood, fucking
yeah, dude, like, and I'm
Coinbase.
Just like,
you see commercials for them all the damn time.
Show. Like, I totally agree that we can have these kind of like, mediums of exchange that are detached from like governments, but like, I don't necessarily seeing it having wide adoption in the near future. We're much more likely to go back to using clay tablets, I think.
I would think you're wrong. I mean, like when you travel around, everybody's got access to the internet, which means everyone's got access to.
Do they though?
Everywhere that matters.
They don't have the internet. Fuck you.
Yeah. In the eyes of the capitalist, only those with the internet matter. But I mean, widespread. Yeah, like you have access to the internet, so you have access to digital currencies, Bitcoin or otherwise. I mean, let's face it. When I pull out my credit card or my debit card, that's a virtual currency. Like that only exists on the bank's ledger. If that ledger gets hacked, then that ledger's it doesn't even matter anymore. They have to make
insured by the FDIC though. So if your bank gets hacked and your bank account's fucking empty, and it was like a crime.
Well, yeah, but
like,
the thing is,
they're like, here's your money back.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, there is literally no way. It is very difficult for a proper Bitcoin wallet to be hacked. What gets hacked are the exchanges. It would be like going into a money exchange and robbing it, face to face. You find the point of weakness where everything is collected and you exploit that. You don't go to people's individual houses and look underneath their mattresses for money.
Okay, well, I don't think we're going to settle that, and it is 7:45.
Yeah, so
let's wrap. Thank you for watching. This has been With Thunderous Applause, and we talked about crypto, we talked about censorship, and we're going to talk about something else next week, Sunday evening, around 5:45, 6 o'clock, maybe.
It seems to be our time.
I had a line. It was going to be at the end of the American Empire, democracy dies.
With thunderous applause.
But then I was trying to think of a clever way to
make it not so bad.
Well, no, it'd be like, at the end of American Empire, everybody buy Bitcoin. Yay.
I mean, hey, a lot of times when countries are you're going through troubled times, people there buy more Bitcoin because it's more stable than their currency.
Yeah, sex work is the oldest profession in the world, some people say.
I had a clip that I wanted to show about how it's not
Bitcoin.
No, more to the point, how Bitcoin is not as anonymous as people would like to think.
Oh, okay. Well, let's pick that up when we think about let's do something on privacy and the invasion privacy and digital. I mean, Jesus Christ! Now with the we'll have to do a different show on it because the amount of oh, you must accept these cookies, but now we're required to at least tell you that you have to accept the cookies.
Yeah.
But then you go and you're like, I don't want to fucking accept the cookies. And they're like, then you can't see our website. And it's like, I guess I'm eating your fucking cookies.
Nom, 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 nom.
All right, man.
Monster. All right.
Take it easy, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Later, guys.
Okay. Bye.